Hey, so I want to just have a little bit of a heart-to-heart with you guys about the LS Car Meet Tuner update. We now, as you can see, our last car from the drip feed is out. And it's something I've been kind of, I'm going to say bummed about, because it kind of seems like the end of something. And then you kind of think, what's next for this whole thing? And I think that that's kind of the beauty of this, is that it doesn't have to really be over. This is kind of the beginning. There's a lot more that we can do with this, and a lot more that we can kind of push to make sure that we continue to have stuff. In reality, this kind of isn't the first, per se, tuner update that they've had, which I think is really exciting, because we just see these record numbers keep coming up. And every time it makes me think that the reason that they're having, the stellar performance that they're having is because they keep adding these kind of car-type updates. And I still think there's a learning curve here, and I did want to go over it. One thing that we learned early on, and if you want to send this to Rockstar, please do, because I think this is a good lesson for them to kind of find out what's best. Now, the first thing you could say is it bad that we have all these cars that are $1 million? And the reality is no. This update, it was only $50,000, I think, to become a member of the LS Car Meet thing, and it's really just an arbitrary number. I hate the idea that it's in there, but you could do probably 2 or 3 missions and you're in, or whatever. It wasn't really as bad as it was made out to be. That was the beauty of this. These cars were not super expensive. Yes, they were more expensive than, say, the cars in the past, but if you think about the Otter being $1 million, the idea that the early game was so flooded with money in 2013, the idea that a lot of you guys should have kind of already had access to these funds, $1 million a car isn't that bad at all. And we got a good deal of cars. We got a coupe, I think a sedan, we got a bunch of new sports cars, we got a new muscle car, and the other thing is that they keep kind of dripping them in a way that, this is the fastest and this is the fastest. I found it funny that when the game, this section first came out, the Urus was kind of the fastest Vectra, and then as things went along, we went from the from the Urus to the Vectra, and now you had a new fastest slow car, if you would, or performance car, and then you went back into basically having different cars like the Calico GTS, the Sultan RS Classic. You had these kind of balanced differences. The other thing is that, if you can see, they're still giving away cars. So if you have any ability to host an event, and how hard is it to just set it at stock and then turn the catch-up off, or maybe you need catch-up, whatever. Just figure it out. Find, it's not too hard to get some of these cars and play it together. And there was people who even made suggestions like find a group of people. But I think therein lies the issue. If you want to have a group of people and you want to say, hey, we're going to have this group of people that play together, and that's really the trick to this, to find, this next group of people, then we have to have groups out there that are good about it. And you can't have groups that are, I guess the word is arrogant, or it has to be presentable. It has to be something where you're not out there just spamming everybody to join your group. That's not the group you want to be. Find people that are your friends. Find people that you like, that you want to play this game with, and I think you'll spend a lot more time playing it. And the idea that the more people that get involved in this, the more support we get, the more time people spend playing. I'm sure already that they've seen a lot of stuff kind of die off in the login of how this update went. And that's kind of unfortunate, but it's just the way it is. There's a lot of other games out there. There's a lot of stuff going on. But there's a lot of you guys who are kind of diehard fans that want to see stuff keep going. And it's unfortunate that you kind of can't get what you want, because it's either groups that are just constantly spamming, guys that are arrogant that want everybody to join their crew or their organization or whatever. And it's just... It kind of ruins it. But that's the thing is there are fewer of them than there are the guys that are actually playing this to play this. And that's the thing is there are still a ton of challenges when it comes to this. First, you can see there popped up the screen, I'm at level 223 right now. We are at the run for 1,000. That's the thing is I'm going to do everything in my power to see how quick I can get to that 1,000 rank and do it naturally. In other words, just we're going to do some races every day. We're going to continue to do anything that we can. The bringing the car in the shop, bringing some time into the testing area over there, and racing. And what would be really nice for some of you is that if you actually hosted some stuff. Remember that these guys are getting bonuses when they do sprints. There's sprint races, there's test track races, there's all the stuff that's in there that just really, I don't think for some of you is getting utilized. And that's the thing is people will give me judgmental about it, but it's still that idea that there's this stuff out there that really isn't being implemented. And I think it might be a little bit because this is an old game and like we were saying, people bounce back, but it is what it is. So there's something that obviously, like I said, if you're still doing this, you're still hosting car meets. And if you're hosting car meets, don't do the takeover option. Just do it like this. Right now there are 32 empty spaces in here. My car is over there. There's like 3 over there. Like you can see them. And if you want to have a car show, have it with active stuff in it and have it be dynamic. People can buy clothing. They can, look the part, get a tattoo, whatever. But have it be live and active. So the thing I wanted to suggest to Rockstar, like I said, if you guys want to send this to them, feel free, was that there was a very cool balance lock algorithm that went on when it came to this, and I think there's a way to master it. The other thing that we have all the time is trip feed cars are faster, blah, blah, blah. We didn't kind of see that here, but we did see something where it was like there was kind of cars that kind of rose to the top depending on what you wanted them to do. So what I said, and I've said this to Rockstar, I've actually sent it to their suggestion box a couple of times, was that we need to have the cars, each one have its own little benefit and negative. And what that really should balance out to is like Route 68 is one variation of a very fast track. So the car that runs on Route 68 should be kind of the fastest car when it came to speed. So maybe not the fastest car with the top end per se, but at least one of those cars that for the timing of the track should be fast for what it does. The other thing is you have cars like the Vectra, which when you have street racing, the Vectra it only has 2 races that it's not the best in. And that's really cool because you have the Calico GTF. People want to take that out. They end up getting beaten by a slower car. They're confused by it. That Vectra is the 0 to 60 car. And then the other thing is you'll have something like the nimble car. So the car like the Urus should be the nimble one that can go in and out of turns really quick. And even though it doesn't have the same takeoff as the Vectra, or it doesn't have the same kind of dynamics, that car is still competitive from its area. Then you have, for instance, the Sultan Classic RS, which is a good all-around car, but it masters nothing. And then you have that kind of variation. And that's the thing I like about it, is because you have vehicles that, depending on the track, and that's the thing is you got to make the tracks that kind of rhythmically work for each car, is that you have one where people need to buy multiple vehicles to compete in racing. Now, first thing guys are going to say is, oh, that's kind of a bummer. But think about all the times that, like the RX-7, we just got the RX-7 out, and I'm going to pull mine in. And how bummed were you when you're like, oh, great, like the only thing it's good at is it's not even good at drifting. Like there's a better drift car and it's a truck. It's like, come on, there's better ways of doing this. You know what I mean? It's like everybody knows that an RX-7 is
you're through to your garage. You
easily
need me to bring you a ride?
The best handling vehicles out there. It's an incredible car. Like if you've ever actually raced an RX-7, it's the crazy nimbleness that it has is the word I dare I say flawless. It screams being a race car. The Super GT stuff is, it's one of the fastest cars. That and the NSX was one of the cars that just kept dominating the track. So for people who are really looking for this car to show up and then to have it be it just doesn't work. If you're going to make drift cars, then put the drift wheel things on it, make it a specific drift car, and make the wheels be the thing about it. There's no drift playlist for this stuff. So every car out there should be bringing something to the table. No car right now, when they bring another one out, should be wasted effort. It should not cost, especially when it's like a $2 million car. It's got to bring some kind of value. It's what kills me about the Lynx, was that the Lynx had no ability to be competitive whatsoever. It was one of the funnest cars to drive, and we didn't have tracks that took it to its strengths or even catered to its weaknesses, if you will. And that's the problem. So now we have something where it's like there's a dead weight car. So what does everybody do? They buy the fastest car, they buy the whatever. So they and this is what happened in this, and I thought it was funny. Everybody bought the Calico GTF. They sat on their laurels with the Calico GTF. They thought that they had picked the fastest car, and then they went around and went to every track and tried to collect wins and show off that they were the fastest. And what ended up happening is that the tuner class was brand new. It is its own class, even though there's multi-class. You could have a car that was a tuner and it was a sport or a coupe or a muscle car. And that was the thing is you ended up having cars that were multi-purpose. So you did your first street race, you did your first pursuit, you were like, oh, Calico all the way. And then you picked up a Sultan, and you're like, hey, I'm actually faster with the Sultan than I am with the Calico. While some people are still obviously faster with the Calico, but hey, I'm better with this car than I am with that other car. And then you got into the street racing side of it, and you're faster with the Vector. And the guys with the Calicos are going, what's going on here? It's a hard to handle car. Why can't I win? And that logic, I think, permeated this update. So there is a place they can go. I love the street racing. Let's stick with that street racing. Let's stick with the pursuit stuff. The pursuit is great. I think there's a better way to do pursuit too, but I really can't put my finger on it. The idea of being able to find different paths is great, but there's just something it's missing, and I can't put my finger on it. I know for a fact with street racing, the real trick to street racing is going to be having variations in track styles. Stuff that really, longer tracks that cater more to the Sultan RS Classic versus, pushing towards the Calico GTF. And, there's one track that's the Vector and the Urus, and even that, the Urus is now kind of defunct. And that's the thing, is they just gave us this new, perennial or whatever, and the car doesn't have any place to go. It's just supposedly the fastest coupe, and it's not really the fastest coupe. But that's a good thing. The idea that you can now have a race. I can have a race now and say, okay, you can pick 2 or 3 cars, and everybody has these 2 or 3 cars to pick because those cars mean something. They have value, and that's huge. So here's the thing. There is a place to go from here. We need more street races. We need more pursuit races. I like the idea of the sprint races. I like the idea of even the drift races, but the drift races have to be their own thing, if you will. And it has to be, that really has to be catered correctly if you're going to do it. But like I said, damaging a ZR350, that's not how you want to do it. You make it its own thing, because drifting has never been a real thing in GTA, and it is sad, but it's just a fact. Just wait for GTA 6 to master that monster, if you will. But yeah, like I said, every car that comes into this from here on in, doesn't matter if it's $5 or $4 million to $5 million. You can make a $6 million car, but it has to bring something to the table that is within the competitive reins of every other car out there. Maybe if it is a little bit handling more, maybe it is. I always thought that if we really want to make a cool racing series, that was the beauty of the stock car class with, the NASCAR style cars that they had, was that you had a class where the only difference in the cars were the liveries. And I think you can do something with that similar when it comes to sort of a super GT style racing, where all the cars are, you can pick any car you want. It has a racing kit that you can slap on it, and then all the cars basically have the same stats. Like, one's a little bit better in the turns but slower in the speeds, and basically have that kind of bar that you pull around that says, you can may give it a faster speed, but if you do, it's going to lose handling. If you give it better handling, it's going to lose its 0 to 60. It's going to, there's a kind of a ballast there, and each car has one thing that it's better at than the other. So one thing, maybe you can max it out more, but the fastest car isn't going to be the best handling or whatever, and make it a balanced vehicle. And I don't want to make this, obviously, I don't want to make it a Gran Turismo style game where, we have, people are pulling around things. I think that was I liked it in the idea of the open wheel, and I think it worked for open wheel, but the problem with open wheel was really the tires, so the hard, medium, and soft thing. I don't think that was implemented right, and then they kind of changed it around, and that really killed it because a lot of people were already vested in how they were doing that. And I mean, if at that point I would have just said, look, make a rolling start and do it that way, I think people would have had a lot more fun with a rolling start idea to do it that way. But here in this street racing ideology, you can do that. You can go with stuff and go nuts. The last thing that I think that this update needs that it didn't have was, and I hope that everybody agrees with me, is drag racing. We've seen all sorts of stuff when it came to muscle cars and all sorts of stuff that, every time you go to any sort of car meet, you're going to end up seeing dudes that are drag racing. And I don't know if you want to do that as its standalone thing. I like the idea of how they have the track system here where it's a controlled environment but still kind of in the free roam. So two guys jump into that race and then they line up and it's 4 wide and they drag race down the strip. So it can be one guy, you can have one racer that's really trying to get top speeds and figure out how to master his 0 to 60 and his launch time and all that stuff. You could play around with that quite a bit to get it. Like, imagine like you had to rev it in a way that your RPMs had to sit certainly perfect to get the right launch and not spin out or whatnot, and make some of that stuff more pronounced so that it's easier to maintain and understand. It's very hard to keep these cars RPM wise where you need them to be. So yeah, I wouldn't even say like tire choice or whatever, but just if you want to, car dynamics alone would be something that was really cool that drag racing could master. And I think that would be a competition that would definitely bring a lot of people back, because I feel like they would be coming in here. A lot of people see the racing, and there's a lot to racing lines and car choice that I see that newer players kind of, and I don't want to say choke on, but it's almost like too much information. It's too much input for them, and they don't know what to do. So the reality is drag racing is that popular because it lets you do all those things. But if you don't have that drag racing in a controlled environment, you have people that pop tires and lower them and use all these other abilities. And even in here, where you can dump a car to the ground, that would work in drag racing versus it won't work in regular racing. So there's a definite balance there. And the idea of having funny cars, like here's a car that just won't turn, but it is really great 0 to 60, and it has its own racing class, and all the cars are pretty much the same. So just make a funny car thing with 3 different body styles, and all the cars have a ton of different liveries, and there really isn't much to upgrading it. It's just you pay all the stuff for turbo and max, and then maybe a fuel thing or something like that. Maybe add something new like the nitrous thing, and then that would be so cool to say, hey, where do we hit nitrous? Is it early? Is it late? Where do you hit it in the chain of things? There would be a lot of learning curve there, and I think it's something where new players could get into and they just have fun with it, and then make it separate from racing, because I think that's the other problem is people really get kind of gaffed out on racing because racing has been kind of overused for a lot of stuff. I think that's the other things. People get into it and they see that win-loss, and we were seeing that race early. If you see some of our recordings, we'd start off with a full room of 8 players in the street race, and by the second race that we're recording, it's like 2 to 3 players in the room, and before we're even done with the second race, there's one guy left. And that doesn't help anybody. Like, what fun is that? So if you do the drag racing, you can pick your opponents. You can, hey, I want to be involved in that race, or I want to do this, or maybe I'm going to host my own race in this free roam and, do it wherever. There's a bunch of spots here that have straight lines. Maybe do it in a way that it sets it up, that says this is the distance that you need, and this is how far they have to make it. Maybe even some of that could be fun. I don't know, but I just think that's something that needs to be done. I think that would be cool to have it available in the game, and I think it's something that we've missed for a very long time. We keep going back to the stuff like drifting, and that's the thing is drifting's just, it's not an easy thing to implement in this game. I'm glad they have it, and I'm glad you guys that are driving it are enjoying it, but there's just no way of quantifying who wins or who loses other than just having some kind of judge that sits in there and stands next to it and goes, that guy, I think that guy did well and this other guy didn't. So there's a lot of input to unpack on the LS meets. Like I said, I don't want us to think that this is over. All the drip feed cars, I've all bought all the cars, and I've done other stuff, and I've gone home. I think that the beauty of having a reputation system like this, where you can continue to go up and continue to earn stuff, is something that's very poignant to the style of playing this game. And here's the other thing. So if I'm at level 219 right now, and I'm on the global, I think I'm like 200 or something. Yeah, 249 at rank 219. So there's a lot of other players up this chain that are still, you get up fast. There's a lot of people that have already given up pretty much. If I'm at 219, I'm guessing there's a lot of players that still don't play, I guess, right? And, that's kind of weird for me. I'm like, are they still playing? What's going on? And, look at this, man, 1,071 races. I only got 377. I feel like I'm, like, slacking. It's weird. And this guy right up here was 1,000 level. He made it, like, week 2. And that is, I'm at 219 right now, and I've been going pretty much all out, like, logged in all the time, doing something in here to make sure that I get my level bumped up. So I'm thinking some of this stuff isn't real, but you guys make your judgment call on that. But it's not about that. It's about your move forward and your idea of being able to get to that 1,000 and continuing to do that by street racing and pursuits. And there's more opportunities here. And that's the thing is if you can get people to get invested in it, actually, I wish I joined regular full lobbies, and I was expecting rooms like this where people were, tons of people would be in here. We could point out cars, and I come in and there's like one dude in here. It's like, hey, and the rest of the guys are still doing their old grind, delivering product or doing whatever. And it's like, I came into a game to have fun, and I still see people working. So I don't know. I just, like I said, I think that if you put that, I think that drag racing contingent gets thrown in. I think that the cars are more competitive overall. I think if you always have an option when you're driving, I think you're going to get a lot more people that are going to get involved in it, especially go, hey, you know what, hey, I can go faster with this or faster this way. There's certain things in the game you're not going to be able to change, but at least change the stuff that we can for the better. So thank you guys for tuning in. Like I said, we're still on this climb to 1,000 here. We're going to keep moving with it. I'm going to jump off this and have some races. I'm going to keep sending you guys the street races so that you see what's up out there, and I hope that you like it. Like I said, like and subscribe. If you like what you're seeing, if you end up winning races by some of the information that we've given you, then it's been completely worth putting that stuff out. So like I said, if you've won those races, send us a like. Hit us with a subscribe. Like, tell us you want to see more of this, because I don't want to go back to just doing some of the other games I have, because those are the ones that people view. This is the kind of thing that I think get a lot more players are involved in it, and they get a lot more out of it. So if that's something you like, hit it, let us know, put it something in the comments, and otherwise we're going to keep doing what we do. And I'm going to either be on this channel or I'll start working on the other channel, so whatever works, we'll still be out there. So thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back soon. Like I said, like and subscribe, hit the bell icon, and We will see you soon. This is Primo, and I'm signing off. Talk to you guys later. So you guys have a good race. Bye.